Big ideas start with a spark. At Tassis, we use that spark to ignite the fire in ourselves and our kids. So with the trust we build and the knowledge we share, we can grow together and stand tall, creating opportunities to advance in business while setting an example for the next generation. Whether you are starting fresh in Portugal or expanding globally, we're here to support each other. This is more than a network. We are a community that sets the examples for the leaders of tomorrow. Join Tassie's Paris business community and share your knowledge and insights. Scan the QR for more information. See you there.
Hi Nanda, we met already, right?
We did. Hi Ferdinand, how are you?
Good. I hope you're well. Please share with the audience who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm an architect. I'm originally from Brazil, but I moved to London to study architecture. I actually started studying architecture in Brazil and then moved to London and finished the whole degree, master's, postgrad, MBA, studied for 8 years in London. Worked in London for many, many years until I moved to Portugal 2.5 years ago. Set up my business in London in 2015, working with high-end residential, but I've also worked with big commercial projects in the past. I've done high-rise buildings, I've done airports, shopping centers, hotels, but my focus now is high-end residential, mostly family homes, single-unit family homes. Sometimes developments too, but mostly family homes.
Okay. How big is your team?
I've got 5 in Portugal, for 5 architects, 3 also of them also interior designers, 2 in Brazil, 4 in London, and 2 in India.
Okay, why India?
Because they started working with me actually in London. One of them studied with me. And he was really good in 3D modeling and a software that my team uses. And then he moved back and kept working for me and then hired one of his assistants there to work with us too. So they want specific thing, which is just 3D modeling, creating images, similar to what the team in Brazil does as well. They work with the software that they do BIM, which is BIM, Building Information Modeling, producing, integrating all the information that we produce as architects, and then get all the information the engineers produce as well, put all in a 3D model, and export the drawings for construction from that. So the team in Brazil does that, something very specific.
Okay, so you started already to say where your work starts and where it ends. So can you guide us through a normal project, residential?
A normal project, okay. Well, every project's different. So let's say if it's a refurb, for example, a smallish project that a family buys an old property in Cascais that needs someone staged and sold it beautifully, but the property needs sometimes a full refurb. All the properties in Portugal usually have small windows, small openings, and people come and they want floor-to-ceiling glass everywhere, lots of natural light. So basically, initially we sit down with the client and develop a brief together, send them a very detailed questionnaire as well. And then the first step, we produce feasibility studies. We produce normally 3 options for that brief. Mm-hmm. So option 1 being what's in your mind. You tell us exactly what you want. Okay. I want the living room here, the bedrooms there, roof terrace, swimming pool there. So we produce the first option, try to translate your ideas into the paper. Option 2 is usually your ideas with mine and my team's input. See how we think we can make your idea a little bit better, maybe identifying things that we haven't seen or challenging your initial ideas. And then third option is something that you haven't asked us to do, is something completely outside the box. You might look and say, oh gosh, this is really not what I want. But normally things do come out from there. So you usually take the 3 options, and the different aspects of each option will feed into what the final project will be. Okay. Then we develop that project into detailed design, material specification, engineering specification, and follow it all the way through to the end of construction.
Okay. Talking about the 3 options you give, which one is the most taken finally? Did you have numbers for that?
It's interesting though, because a lot of the times on the smaller projects, clients think they know exactly what they want, and they sometimes are so prescriptive as well. And I say to them, you don't have to be so prescriptive. Leave a little bit of room for the team to surprise you and to challenge your ideas, because we can always go back and adjust the design to what you thought was what you really wanted. But it's even ourselves. Design is a process that it's a try and error exercise. You have to go back and forth, try multiple times, try different things. It's spend hours and hours. There's endless amount of time you can spend on a single design, and we surprise ourselves with the ideas that we come up with as well. Okay. That it comes from this exercise. So a lot of the times when the client sees option 3, they are like, wow, I never thought this could turn into that. And it's usually a combination of the 3. I don't think there was ever a situation that a client said, we want option 1 or we want option 2. It's always a combination of the 3, okay. Which is interesting. It's usually the ideas that we like the most as well on each option. There is a level of design that is subjective, but there is always one option that is a little bit better than others, okay. In terms of, it might be natural light, it might be the flow of the space, it might be, we can identify straight away as we are doing, oh, this is really good, oh, this is excellent, but probably a little bit more expensive than that. So we present all of that, and it's usually a combination. Because sometimes to do a wow factor living room and explore some expensive structural intervention, you might have to keep some other areas of the project a little bit more behaved, because you can splash the money everywhere on the project. So it's a little bit of selecting where you're going to invest on the big moves, and sometimes as well small moves on a design can make a big impact too. So
your discussion is between craziness and probability that this is structurally
feasible
to be built, right?
Yes, yeah, but we tend every project has its as its ceiling. So even on the crazy scenario, we are never going to propose something that is completely unrealistic to that project. So we have experience with working with different structural engineers. So I'm only going to propose something that I think it's appropriate to that scale. Even, if it's something a little bit, maybe a little wild for that project, it's still within, might be pushing the budget to a level, but it's still under a realistic ceiling to that project. We don't, I'm not going to propose anything that is completely unrealistic to a... Okay. We try to respect the budget, the constraints of a project.
Let's talk about the airport. Which airport would I have to fly to see your work?
Well, you can fly to Geneva, but you have to come on a non-Schengen flight. Okay. So you have to come on a long-haul flight from either Asia or Brazil, or I think London is non-Schengen as well. So you can come from London and you're gonna go to a terminal in Geneva called ILS, which is the one that I worked on for many, many years. So the first part of the project, I did a tunnel from Switzerland to France, which was an extremely boring project, but interesting because it was an infrastructure project. It was the first time that I had to actually coordinate many structural engineers, all sorts of engineers, and a big team of architects in Switzerland as well. And then the second part was the actual terminal. That was really interesting, working with super talented architects in London and in Geneva as well. Very good engineers. Because it's a building that is actually kind of tilted to the side.
Yeah, so
that makes, it's actually tilted so it allows the light that comes from the top of the building to reach the building behind. But there were structural challenges around it that the engineers won awards with that. But it was with challenges along the way, but an extremely, rewarding project to be part of.
So you had projects in Geneva and maybe some other places in the world. How is working in Portugal for you? Is it different? Is it more challenging? What is it?
It's different. I think every country has different challenges, and I think whenever, I worked in Monaco, I worked in France, in Switzerland, I worked on 2 projects in Russia, I worked in London, I worked on a project in America, I worked in Brazil as well. And I think when you start working on a country, there is a set of regulations that will determine so many things around the design, but also not a set of regulations. There is an order to the design, to planning of the design. For example, in Portugal and in Switzerland, planning, the licensing come after detailed design. In England and in Brazil and in Russia and in the US, that comes prior to developing detailed design. So the order of the project and the regulation around it as well determines the course of how the project is organized. So every project has its different challenges, but I think essentially the role of the architect is the same. Is how to get your brief as a client, assess the site, the conditions around the site, the regulations which form that background of where, how high you can go, how wide you can go, how deep you can go. Take all of that and try to translate your ideas, not mine, into the best project that it can be. That's one of the challenges as well. Almost like detaching myself out of what I think is the best architecture, but trying to get your personality into the design. That's a big challenge on every project.
How do you manage to understand my personality, which I want to put into my project?
You will make me. Basically, I will ask you so many questions at the start, and we'll start. It's a collaborative approach, really. We'll start an exercise of collecting image references for every part of the design. And a lot of the times, when I start a project, there's one project specifically that we did that when I saw the images that the client selected, I was just like, this is so not me. I don't even know how I'm going to go about it. And it's actually turned out to be a really good project, which I loved it. And the client too, I'm doing a second project for them right now, actually in London. And we designed everything, even the light fittings are bespoke. And her taste was nothing like mine to any of it. It was extremely traditional. Everything was traditional. Molds and features, things that were unlikely anything I had done before, and it turned out to be a really nice project, really well designed in collaboration with the client. But I think it's one of the challenges. I have to try and put myself in your position. For example, I have one client right now that everything on the design is guided by Feng Shui.
Okay.
So I have to design with that in my mindset, but I know nothing about it. Okay, so I have to do a bit of research. The client has done a bit of research. And it's the challenge of this specific design is that I have other clients that, I've had all sorts of specific, sometimes odd requests on a job, and we have to try and make that work in the best way as possible, but not in a good way, in a way that it makes it special and different, that has some kind of almost an emotional impact on the project when you walk in. That's, I think, the challenge for an architect.
What are the oddest request you ever had?
We did this little house it was one of my first projects. I love it. It's a little house that we did for a couple in the UK. That they wanted the house to be for the grandkids. The whole house to be with surprises for the grandkids. So the living room, for example, has a pitched roof with exposed rafters on the roof. Everything's exposed. And then there is a hidden stair, a hidden kind of set of staircase inside a wardrobe that looks like a wardrobe, that the kids can climb up to something that looks like a tree house. It's a mezzanine inside the house that overlooks different parts of the house. Okay. And to get off from it, on the ceiling actually, there is a net that connects this elevated mezzanine tree house to another, almost like a net, like a hammock, that you see in some projects in like Bali or Tulum, But it's high up in the ceiling so the kids can cross through it and go through the top of another wardrobe and slide down all the way to the bottom of the house, 2 floors below, on a set of slides that go inside cabinetry that you can't see. But so it's kind of it was like designing a tree house, playhouse for kids. And it was interesting. I have small kids, like everyone here from TASIS. And the kids were friends of my kids. That's how those clients got to me. And it was a really, really nice, exciting project. Loads of cabinetry and everything was very bespoke. It was like designing a little, a little surprise box. It was really interesting, yeah.
So when this kind of client comes to your office, how do I see you? Do you work by yourself, or do you kick ideas around in your team. So how would that work?
Normally, I like to meet the client for the first time on site or at the client's home, so I can get a feel a little bit for what.
By yourself?
So sometimes it's me and another architect. Depends on the scale of the project. If I know that it's a big project, then I'll bring a team. So the other day we went to see a slightly bigger project. It was me and 2 more or 3 more architects and 1 interior designer. But if it's a smaller project, then I'll go by myself.
Okay.
Assess the project first. Usually if I go to the client's house, the first thing that they say is like, oh, excuse the mess, it's messy everywhere. And I go, no, don't worry, I can see beyond it. I don't see the mess. I'm not looking at your underwear at the floor. You know, I can see beyond it. I just want to have a feel for what you do with the space, where you know, if you watch TV in the bedroom, or if you know, little things that will give us tips clues during the design stage. And also the brief keeps on evolving throughout the project until the end. Because at the start of the project, you come with your set of requirements, which are general requirements. I want 4 bedrooms, 2 en-suites, a swimming pool here, living room like that. And that will evolve to a much more refined brief throughout the project. You also, with the design, will kind of discover things that you wanted as well and probably didn't know at the start. And that's, it's part of the design process. The design will evolve with you.
What is your signature project where you say this is the best and this is all my passion is in there?
It's a difficult question. I don't know. I think
I
think this one that I gave as the example with the kids, all the kids surprises inside is a good one. We have one current project in Alentejo as well, in design stage, that is really, really special to me. Okay. There is many good ideas from different team members, including the clients. There is going to be a really stunning home that's special. Geneva Airport was special in so many levels because it was so technical and so challenging. Designing a home, the challenges are nothing like designing an airport. You know, you're working with just crazy requirements everywhere. So I think the whole thing was really interesting to be part of that. It's like, you know, being a small part of an orchestra, loads of people working together towards something big, and everything is really complex, and putting all the complexities together, that was big. But I've worked on interesting projects. I worked on a project in Monaco many, many years ago. That was one of the first projects. It was kind of a shock to me because before moving to London, I worked in doing master plans for slums in Brazil. I had a scholarship at uni. So I used to go spend a day in a favela working with communities, helping little houses. And then I moved to London and I got a job with a developer working in this crazy project in Monaco. And it was shocking. I had never seen anything luxury, high-end residential to that level. And but nowadays I see it again. Because I think in Portugal there is scope for that at the moment, and I see that the clients have that kind of a mindset.
So maybe the variety is your passion, right? The differences.
Yeah, the differences. I think every project has the different challenges, and I think that's what keeps it interesting as well. Every project's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question: who in the audience? What kind of people would you like to talk to you about your next big projects? So who would come to you with what kind of wish?
I think we do a lot of renovations. So people that buy an older house that needs a refurbishment. Sometimes a client comes and say, I only want a kitchen extension. And we're like, fine, we'll give you the kitchen extension. Okay. But then 2 years down the line, the house has changed completely and it's like a new build. So the brief evolves, and the client sometimes doesn't know exactly what the client wants, but then the project evolves a little bit and becomes a big project. So it depends. We do new builds from scratch, developments or smaller projects.
Any kind of, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Nanda, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.